Let me tell you of the days of high adventure.
Hello, I'm Eric.
And I'm Kevin.
And this is 6 Degrees of Schwarzenegger, the podcast where we take a long, hard look at some of our favorite action movies from the era of Arnold.
Schwarzenegger is the icon of the genre, and we're taking a deep dive into some of these 80s and 90s cult action movies and breaking them all the way down.
Well, we're back. We're back for another one. Yeah.
Good to be here.
Absolutely.
Good to see you, Eric.
Yeah, good to see you too, Kevin. It's a pleasure, as always.
For sure, man. For sure. We're getting back on our Arnold Schwarzenegger shit.
We hadn't done one in a couple. It was about time we went back to the well.
I like to mix it up, you know?
Yeah.
This was one that I didn't have much background with at all. You?
I saw it once when I was young and then had no memory of it from there.
I feel like same.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm sure I saw it.
Oh, yeah, no question.
And I remember nothing about it. And I feel like probably with good reason, because it's like of his whole catalog, this has got to be one of the couple weakest entries.
Yes,
Unless
I agree.
I'm not counting stuff from like when he was sort of over the hill.
Yeah, once he
like
crossed
his
that threshold,
from his prime era, like this was definitely one of the weaker outputs. But
I agree.
don't let that
No,
make you
please.
turn off the podcast.
No, this is going to be a great episode. There's so much to talk about with this movie.
Sometimes the shittier the movie,
the more fun we
better,
have.
the better the podcast.
This one is good. I'm going to be honest.
That's almost a rule.
As a general rule on the podcast, we try to be optimistic and positive, even in the face of dark movies. And this one, I think I'm just going to have to lean in on it a little bit. Yeah.
There's a few things about the movie that I like, but yeah. It's such an odd choice for Arnold.
It is.
And, but
weird casting, weird.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
It's Red Heat we're talking about.
Red Heat. I guess we should indicate that. Yes.
One of the many Cold War themed Red movies that came out with Red Dawn and Red Scorpion, which I never saw.
Wow.
But
I've never seen Red Scorpion.
Red Sonja, which is not a Cold War movie, but
in the same era, though.
Nevertheless, yeah. But yeah, it was Arnold, 1988. Right. So he had these ebbs and flows, I feel like, in the career where he would have something that was a big step forward in his career, but then he had maybe a couple of shitty movies that he was already attached to that he couldn't get out of. They came out, because it was like he did Conan.
Yep.
Then he was inked up to do Terminator.
Yep.
But they pulled him away from Terminator to go do Conan the Destroyer first.
Mm-hmm.
And that came out and it was just not great.
No.
Right. But Terminator's great. And I think then Commando was great.
Yes.
But then he had like Raw Deal, which was very meh, and Red Sonja, which was about on par with Destroyer.
Yeah.
Then he had, then he had either Running Man and Predator come out, which were good.
Which were great.
Then he had this and maybe something else shitty in there too. Then he had like Total Recall. Then he started making strictly good choices from then on, because it was like Total Recall and Twins and Kindergarten Cop, and he was just like, and Terminator 2. Just like banging out nothing but elite flicks.
And he rode that wave for a while, because I remember like Eraser did big numbers, and if you go back and try to watch it, it's not great.
It's not great. It stands up well like compared to this.
Yes.
But yeah, it's not like that next level.
Right.
It's not True Lies. It's not Speed or other like movies, mid-90s action flicks that were really good.
And True Lies is still one of the best of that era. So.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So he had it. I think it was just like, I guess that era, I guess the moment had passed for like the big muscle-bound one-man army type action movies.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I think it had moved into, when he started his star started fading a little bit. What was the next era of action movies that came after that?
I feel like it was like it was the start of like the comic book movie era, like Spider-Man and shit like
that's
that.
right, in the early 2000s.
And stuff like Speed or I don't know, things with like Brad Pitt as like your action hero or something.
A little
like
bit
that.
more of the everyman, although I don't know that you can really consider Brad Pitt an everyman.
No, yeah,
but,
he's
less
some other
muscle-bound,
species.
though.
But yeah, it wasn't like these larger than life steroid guys.
Right.
It would be more like a Jason Bourne type thing.
Yes,
or
exactly.
something like that.
And the fights were more choreographed and less brute force. There was a little bit more premeditation into some of the things, because Arnie, one thing you can never accuse him of is being premeditated. I mean, I feel like his characters are always just very much pure id. And,
that's why this feels like a strange choice for him.
Yeah, exactly, because this is not id at all.
Yeah. I feel like this was a strange choice for everyone involved. We'll talk about it as we work our way through, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. But I'll try to mention here who's like the behind the scenes guys attached. So it was directed by Walter Hill, who is a legendary filmmaker. He had done The Warriors, which I love. The Warriors. Do you know that one well?
Oh, of course I've seen The Warriors. Yeah,
that's like cult classic of cult classics.
100%.
But then he did 48 Hours, which I think is awesome. Last Man Standing, the Bruce Willis.
Oh, that's right. Was that the one with Jennifer or Sarah Jessica Parker?
No, that was Striking Distance.
Distance.
Last Man Standing was like, I think like Prohibition era. He was like in a small town. It was like Tommy guns and shit like that.
I remember that. Yeah.
But I don't remember much about it, except that it was just fine.
Yeah. Ultimately, it was just fine.
Then he did a movie that I've not seen, but that Kyle from the podcast loves, called Streets of Fire.
Oh, I've not seen Streets of Fire.
It's supposed to be like set in the 80s, and it's all neoned out, but it's also got this like weird 50s West Side Story vibe, like sort of a musical gangster violent thing that I feel like I need to see it.
I know. This sounds really weird.
Yeah. And then he did a favorite comedy of mine from the 80s, Brewster's Millions.
Oh, yeah. Brewster's Millions is phenomenal.
I don't know why he did that movie, but he did.
I mean, look, everybody contains multitudes. I mean, we can talk about George Miller's over for as long as we want. You'd never be able to pin that guy down.
True. It was written also by Hill with a story by credit, and also written by a guy named Harry Kleiner and Troy Kennedy Marshall. And these dudes were like legendary writers. I looked them up. The guy Kleiner had written Bullet.
Oh, wow.
And he wrote Fantastic Voyage.
Oh, wow.
It's like old school, like Hollywood shit.
That's amazing.
And then the dude Marshall had written the original Italian Job, like way back when. So it's like these are like dudes from the 60s and 70s.
That's really cool. That's that's so weird though, because this is their absolute milieu, and it's just like this. And we'll get into it, but there's so many things that went wrong with this movie, from casting to editing to
It had awesome like producer pedigree.
Yeah,
produced by Mario Casar and Andrew Vanya, who are the dudes from Karolko, and they were like them and Joel Silver were like the action movie guys for the 80s, because these dudes had done all the Rambo movies. They did Total Recall. A whole bunch of others. They eventually then split up, and the guy Vanya went on and he did Tombstone, and he did Die Hard with a Vengeance, and he did Judge Dredd.
Oh, the original, the Stallone one.
And then Kassar had gone on after the split and did Basic Instinct, Universal Soldier, Stargate, Cliffhanger, Showgirls. And the other, Walter Hill was also a producer along with Gordon Carroll. And those dudes made all the Alien franchise.
Oh, wow.
Movies. Like, they produced the Alien movies together. Like,
the pedigree here is crazy.
Should have been awesome.
I know, exactly. It should have been a no-brainer. Just phone it in.
The cinematographer was Matthew F. Leonetti, who we've mentioned on the podcast before because he did Action Jackson.
Oh, yeah.
But he also had done Commando and Hard to Kill.
All right.
And then he did Angels in the Outfield.
Really?
Weird.
Interesting turn.
He did Too Fast, Too Furious.
Ooh, there we go. Now we're getting into...
And for you, he did Star Trek First Contact.
He did.
And Star Trek Insurrection.
So he's done some stuff. First Contact's
was supposed to be good.
First Contact's
I haven't seen any of those.
Yeah. I'm a huge Star Trek nerd, but that's a whole different podcast.
Yeah. And music by Academy Award winner James Horner, who apparently they use, what do you say? They reuse some of the music in
The Killer.
The John Woo, the
John
Killer
Woo movie. Yeah.
That's cool. And a lot of the music in here is like pretty much the same shit that was in 48 Hours in Commando.
His same style.
I'm like, oh boy. He was like, he was getting paid for like changing a note or two.
Well, I mean, like instead of steel drums, it was what, like
I don't know,
some
Russian, whatever they do, whatever instruments they have over in Russia.
But it was exactly the same vibe, just instead of steel drums.
Yeah. You want to run through the cast?
Sure. Well, Arnold Schwarzenegger obviously plays Ivan Danko.
We don't have to like talk about his resume.
No, I feel like we know who he is. And Jim Belushi plays Art Ridzik, who is a Chicago cop on the beat, and he's a tough go-getter. And I think most people probably are familiar with James Belushi, especially from the movie K-9.
K-9. He was like on however many 100 episodes of According to Jim.
Yes, that's right.
I haven't seen a single one.
No, my father loved it, which should tell you a little bit something about this show.
He's of course John Belushi's brother.
Yeah, famously.
He was an SNL guy too after Belushi had passed away. He was in Trading Places, the old Eddie Murphy flick. I remember him. I think that's like the first time I ever saw him.
Okay.
But then he also is buddies. He went on to stay buddies with Arnold.
Yeah.
Because he popped up in Jingle All the Way and Last Action Hero.
Yeah, and small little roles.
Yeah.
But yeah, he did a few things here and there, and I don't know. I never really drove me crazy. He's never my guy, I guess.
Yeah, I never got the allure.
Yeah,
I don't feel like he has a career except for the nepotism angle. Like
some part of me
your
feels
brother
that
is
way.
Belushi.
Yeah.
So
well, I guess we have to cast you.
Yeah, he probably had friends in the business, and then they're like, they could put the name Belushi on their shit, and like, yeah, because he's not the worst like guy I've ever seen in a movie or by any stretch of the imagination. He's fine.
He's fine.
He's just not like I guess he just has had a what is it the right word? It's like a very blessed career.
That's
right?
That's what
he's probably made
it.
a fucking fortune.
Oh yeah,
especially off that sitcom.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no.
For a guy who's got like just middling talent.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but it is what it is.
I think, but everybody should know the next person, Commander Donnelly, played by the absolute joy of Peter Boyle, who's been in everything.
Yeah, this was sort of a strange choice for him.
It was
I feel
a
like
weird choice for him, but the weird part is he's just playing Peter Boyle in this movie, and it's really hard to get a sense of what this character is supposed to be because you're expecting the grizzled commander character that's in every of these cop movies, and then he's just basically playing Peter Boyle. And I'm like, I'm trying to get your vibe here, bro. But
he's giving you a little bit of that, but also a little bit of like just weirdness, weird comedy.
There's just weird comedy strewed in, and I just don't think he can help himself.
Yeah.
And
he's another like sitcom legend from Everyone Loves Raymond. Everybody Loves Raymond, but also obviously was like famously the monster in Young Frankenstein.
And won an Emmy Award for Best Supporting Actor in the X-Files episode.
Oh shit! This movie has a few X-Files.
There's a couple X-Files people in here that we'll hit on. But yeah, he won an Academy Award for playing Clyde Bruckman in the episode Clyde Bruckman's Final Repose.
Around, I don't know when this would have been, probably a few years on after this, he played strangely like the bad guy in Kickboxer 2.
Oh my God, I did not know
a fighter.
that.
He was just like the evil promoter guy or whatever. And it's just like, he must have been down on his luck for a while and just had to take what came along, you know?
Yeah.
Did you ever see a movie he was in that was like from the early 70s called Joe?
No,
where he was like a very right wing, like racist character.
Wow.
It's a wild fucking flick.
No, I have not.
I think it's a
that.
John G. Alvinson movie. I think the guy who went on to do Rocky and stuff, but it predates Rocky. I want to say it came out like 72, 73, 74.
Wow, no, I'd never seen.
It was part of that new wave of like of new American cinema, you know, along with like the Coppola movies and
the first graduates
Lucas
of the AFI.
and everything like that. Yeah, like people who were trying to do sort of like French New Wave style, minimalist type story, like small scale stories. Yeah, Joe's a fucking crazy movie. Because if you want to see Peter Boyle say some hateful racist shit, then
which is
Joe's
so
the movie for
weird
you.
because he's such a lovable kind of. Because, I mean, he's like 6'4".
Yeah, big guy.
Yeah, he's a big guy, but he's like just cuddly, right? Like you don't.
Yeah,
get
that's the vibe.
Yeah, this is his vibe.
He's got the Ed Asner vibe where like he seems like this curmudgeonly type of guy, but you know he's just a big teddy bear.
He's a big softy. I know, exactly. Well, we've got Edo Ross playing Victor Rosta. Which,
the bad guy.
The bad guy. And honestly, my favorite character in the whole movie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
This had to be like the biggest part that this actor ever had in his career and in the biggest type of movie.
You had to point out to me that the only other thing, I mean, like the only thing I have seen him in was, again, Action Jackson.
Well, he's one of those guys. He was in Lethal Weapon.
Oh, he was?
He was like the guy who they made him like burn Gary Busey's arm.
Oh.
Like, where he was buying cocaine from the guys or something like that. He had like a scene. He was also in Dick Tracy. He was one of the gangsters. He was Itchy.
So he's a working actor.
He was working a lot, I think, but this had to be the biggest part he had in what is a big Hollywood movie.
And it's weird because he's got great villain vibes. I mean, I would have absolutely watched him as a villain in another movie.
He carried this.
Oh, yeah, 100%. 100%. We've got Lawrence Fishburne.
As Larry
credited
Fishburne.
as Larry Fishburne, which I loved.
Yeah.
As Lieutenant Stobbs, a character I don't still, even now after we've watched the movie so many times, I still don't know what his purpose in this film was.
This movie suffers from an excess of characters.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
And we've got an in her prime Gina Gershon as Kat Manzetti.
I don't think I'd ever seen her this young.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know if I had either, but I mean, she's just totally ageless, though. I mean,
she looks incredible.
She
in
looks
this,
great.
Though. I had never seen her looking this good.
And she's got like a small role, even though they like credit her as the female lead.
I think it was originally meant to be a much bigger part, then this movie got cut to shit.
Cut to shit, and we will get into that.
But she was like Face Off, Showgirls, Bound. She like plays a lot of sexy roles
in a post-credit scene in a season 6 episode of Community.
Yes, you love to reference that.
Starring next to Vince Gilligan of all people, creator of Breaking Bad. And,
wild.
I mean, it's bonkers. But yeah, it was a great scene though. But yeah, I think that's the main cast. There's a bunch of other smaller actors who come in and out of the movie.
Yeah, we'll mention some others.
But I think that takes us to the beginning, to the first opening scene, where we open, of course, with the TriStar Pegasus. Because that's amazing.
That's
I love
2 movies
it.
in a row.
2 movies in a row, and I'm very happy about that. Can't ever go wrong with that. It's an image from my youth that I will never forget. Of course, we move on to Korolko, because this is Kassar.
Yeah.
And
they were, I mean, we were talking before we started recording, like just how they were cranking out like 3-4 movies a year. And big.
Crazy.
Like hit movies. We mentioned some before, but they had also done what they did. Terminator 2 was a Korolko movie.
That was 91.
A Stallone movie called Lock Up, a bad movie where he was in jail.
Yeah.
They did The Punisher, the Dolph Lundgren Punisher.
Yeah.
But they did apparently a series of like bad business deals, put them in financial trouble. And then they lost a ton of money, like Canon, trying to make a Spider-Man movie happen.
That's so crazy.
That's what bankrupted Canon. They spent like $100 million on a movie that they were building sets for and all this, but I don't think they ever shot a single thing.
Wasn't James Cameron attached to one of these projects?
James Cameron was attached to Korolko's Spider-Man.
Okay.
That they apparently sunk like $100 million into pre-production and then never even got a script together.
Jeez.
You know, but yeah, it was going to be written and directed by James Cameron, Spider-Man.
I mean, why wouldn't you sink that amount of money into it? I mean, if Jim Cameron comes to you and says, I want to make a Spider-Man movie, you go...
I think that was going to be the thing after Terminator 2.
Really?
Yeah, that was going to be the next thing, and then it just got stuck in like development hell.
And then...
Apparently there was a script floating around like that you could find on the internet or something. I'm curious about it, actually. But then they had bought the rights to Spider-Man from Canon. Then they lost a fortune on it. Then they sold the rights on to, I think, to Sony or whoever, who ended up doing
Sony ultimately made
giving
it
to Sam Raimi and all that.
Yeah.
Then they got all their money tied up in Cutthroat Island. That was going to be there. This is going to get us back on track. And that turned into one of like the largest flops of all time.
Which is so crazy to me because it's not a great movie by any stretch of the imagination, but the sort of lore and just stigma around that movie is not justified.
Yeah, it was one of those that was just predetermined that this is going to be one of the biggest flops ever before it had come out.
Before it even had come out, right.
Like, I think it had a troubled production and ended up being like the most expensive movie ever made
over budget
at the time. I think I read like that Michael Douglas was going to play the lead and then he dropped out and they had to start over again with a new actor and I can't remember who it was.
Wasn't it?
I'll know if you tell me.
What's his face from Full Metal Jacket and
Modine?
Stranger Things? Yeah, wasn't it Matthew Modine?
Oh, he doesn't need to be headlining movies.
No,
he's not a movie star. He's not the lead.
I could be wrong about that.
No, you're right. You're right. I knew I would know.
Okay.
No, it was definitely Modine.
Yeah.
It was definitely Modine.
So yeah, it was a wrong casting choice for him. And Gina Davis was also a really weird.
She was married
choice.
to Rennie Harlan, who was the director, and it felt like there was like she was being shoehorned into the movie,
which is weird because she does have acting cred. I mean, like Long Kiss Goodnight was. Phenomenally, a great movie, right?
No, she's good, and you can buy her as an ass kicker.
Right, absolutely.
We've done Long Kiss Goodnight. It was one of our Christmas specials on the podcast. Yeah, that's a solid flick.
Yeah, it's a great movie. Yeah, again, another underrated movie that kind of like missed the mark when it came out.
Yeah.
And now though, you look back and everybody loves that movie.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But anyway,
Sam Jackson, I think, has said that was like his favorite role he ever played at the time. Was the guy in Long Kiss Goodnight.
Phenomenal in it. Yeah. Actually, I kind of want to watch it again right now as we're talking about it. Anyway,
I'll send you home with the DVD.
we're on Red Heat right
we're
now. Focus. Right. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So then cut to a picture of Soviet Union, Moscow. And we've got jack dudes shoveling coal into a furnace in a boiler room, and you're like, what is this place?
This is just Soviet Union, baby. That's what is happening,
very weird.
Imagine.
And then breaking the first rule of movies is the most important character. It should probably be the first one you see.
Yeah.
This strange, dour, serious-looking guy walks into frame, and you're like, oh, who is this guy? He must be important.
I'm like, he's the bad guy, I guess, because he's not Arnold.
Exactly. He's not Arnold, therefore he must be the villain, right?
Yeah, there's no reason the movie should have started on a long close-up of a minor character.
Right, exactly. But we track him, and it turns out that this guy is shoveling coals into a boiler to heat a sauna, a mixed gender sauna.
It was like a gymnasium.
It was weird.
/sauna/ like orgy room.
Yeah, there was like jacked guys lifting weight, naked women hanging out by a fountain.
The earliest into any movie we've had gratuitous nudity.
Unbelievable.
It was like seconds. 30 seconds in, and the women were like top notch.
But that's like runs throughout this movie. There's
true.
not an unattractive woman in this movie. But anyway, so he looks across this gymnasium spa orgy room, and we see Schwarzenegger wearing basically nothing.
Yeah.
Other than like just a smallest little loincloth over his front bits.
You noted his posture was very Terminator-ish.
Yeah, very Terminator-ish.
But in a room of yoked up dudes, like Arnold is still on another level from these guys.
It is bonkers. And funny though, the director had him lose 10 pounds for this movie because he thought that Arnold was too big to play this Russian guy. So this is Arnold 10 pounds lighter than he usually is.
Wow. That's probably just like, instead of eating 2 whole chickens a day, you just eat one whole chicken a day for a few weeks and 10 pounds will come off.
So he, it's amazing. So he walks in through like a back room, and we follow him into the back room, and he's like just surveying this area, like he's trying to get a beat on everything.
It was kind of like it had like Terminator vibes, where it was sort of like the way he was scanning the room with his eyes or whatever.
Exactly, almost practically like you're waiting for it to cut to Terminator vision.
But like, I'm just like, I couldn't get over what the people were wearing.
No, it was just these weird I mean, the women were of course totally naked.
It reminded me of like a bartender's apron.
Yeah,
like it was sort of a bartender's apron, but with a G-string.
Yeah.
In case like they had to start making drinks.
Yeah, just you never know. Know when someone needs a mixed drink in one of these places.
Also, Danko had a key dangling from his for some reason.
Never come back to.
Like an old school type of key.
Like I know exactly, like the big hoop and just like the two
the teeth or whatever.
On it. Yeah,
it was so weird.
And they did a close up of it, and like we'll explore this as we get into the movie, but they did massive cuts in editing.
Yes.
Like there's so many scenes that were filmed, finished, and they cut for reasons. I mean, like I guess they just wanted to get it down to time. And a part of me wonders if this was just like a thing that was going to be explained and then just hit the cutting room floor.
I feel like probably. Otherwise, it's just such sloppy, weird filmmaking.
Exactly. Like, who would shoot that key if there had
Why does the key get a close-up? Yeah.
Right, exactly. But anyway, so he's sizing everybody up in this room.
And this is like really the only muscle porn we get in this whole movie.
Oh, the whole movie, yeah.
Which is odd for an Arnold flick.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so Danko walks up to these just like huge muscular dudes. One guy I loved who's like got the smallest little glasses frames.
Yeah, the academic looking dude.
Academic looking motherfucker.
Completely shredded.
So
there was that like Mongolian looking dude that he was kind of Asian looking dude.
Apparently a WWF wrestler.
He was Tiger Chung Lee was his wrestling name.
Yeah, okay.
And then there was Sven Ole Thorsen was there. You can't have an Arnold flick without Sven popping in there.
Gotta have Sven. So there's no dialogue at this point in the movie still.
Yes.
And one of the guys just grabs Danko's hands and holds it palm up and then examines it. And then he say something along the lines of like, this is not a working man's hands.
There's something like if you really work in a foundry, your hands are used to the heat.
Used to the
something
heat, right.
Something bizarre.
So they grab a hot stone from the sauna, and put it in his hand. And it's a pretty good practical effect. I don't know how they got all the smoke coming off of it.
Would that even happen though?
I have no idea.
Is that searing, like cooking flesh?
Yeah,
I guess so.
I guess so, but
gross.
he doesn't suffer any consequences from it.
He does have a bandage on his hand in one scene
That's
later.
right. That is correct. But anyway, so we hear the sizzling, and Arnold like clasps his hand closed around the stone, and it's just like it's not clear if he's feeling any pain. He flexes his arm and then punches the guy in the face.
That made me think like, so it seemed like he had passed whatever test this was.
Right, so...
And then he punches him out. It's like, well, why'd you let him burn your hand
right,
at all,
if you were
then?
just going to punch him in the first place, like, what was the point of this?
Yeah, you could have just punched him without letting him burn your hand.
Right, so the guy flies through the window, and thank God there's like a 10-foot deep snowdrift just outside the window.
When that shit happened, I was just like, yes! Like, he flew out and landed in the snow, and I was like, this is what I mean. I just am here for some dumb violence.
Oh, yeah, straight up. So they roll down, and then it is the most sensual fight you've ever had with these two mostly naked dudes.
Yeah.
Just beating each other up outside of this window. And eventually Danko grabs Sven, who comes out with them, and grabs him by the beard and says, like, after the fight is over, and says, I want Victor Rosta!
Yeah.
And Sven tells him that Victor's hanging out at a particular cafe. Right. Okay, cool.
I don't know why that beard grab was so effective on him. It made him instantly just start giving up the goods.
Yeah, just there was no pressure otherwise.
Not the beard.
Right. No.
Like that.
Anything but the beard.
That,
you can grab my
shit.
balls, but not my beard.
Also, I did not expect to see like Arnold's taint and asshole in this movie.
God.
But here we are. You know,
it was all over this scene.
You could tell it was cold as fuck out there because their skin had turned like really like bright pink.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, damn, these guys are really out here in the snow wearing nothing.
Yeah, there's no question. There's no way to fake how cold it was out there. And so now cut to opening credits as we see a bunch of B-roll of Moscow.
That custom font they had was kind of cool. That like sort of vaguely Cyrillic looking shit.
Yeah. And so we get all of these shots, and you know the movie with all of the shots of Moscow was all guerrilla photography.
Yeah,
because they didn't have any permission to do any of this.
I found myself wondering as I was watching it before I did any type of research. I'm like, would the Soviet Union like let a Hollywood production come in? I know they can get away with that shit now, like in Bourne movies and I remember famously in like Castaway, where he was like Tom Hanks is running around with like St. Basil's in the background and stuff like that. But I was like, nah, this was like peak Cold War.
No, absolutely.
Where the Soviet Union was on the brink of collapse at this point. Like I don't think they're letting a Hollywood movie come in there.
My thought is like, oh, these are all like the best matte paintings I've ever seen. Like clearly this isn't like, you know, the Eastern Bloc, but not Moscow, and they've just like done a matte painting of the Kremlin in the background. But no, they flew to Moscow on, I guess, like you know, legitimate visas, but gotten under spurious circumstances. Like they faked the reason why they were coming.
What
to the
I had seen was something like they were sort of just acting like they were filming like home movies almost, or something like that. It was like a souvenir, like just tourists.
Yeah, exactly.
Shooting on like a little tripod and maybe a Super 16 camera or something like that.
Exactly. So it was all just total guerrilla filmmaking. They had no permission to do it.
Incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Like, that's super ballsy to fly into the Soviet Union. Because,
I mean, we know what happens. Like, if you get captured, you're still locked up over there.
That happens
probably.
today. I mean, that's still going on today, right?
Yeah.
So now we cut to...
There was the bit with the parakeet, which was weird.
Yeah, so now we cut
Establish the parakeet.
Danko's apartment, and there's a wristwatch beeping, and Danko picks it up, and he, like, tends to his parakeat and, like, feeds the bird and stuff.
Yes.
Which, at least they pay off later in the movie.
Sure.
It's like, okay, it's a weird
it
character trait.
It establishes the alarm for later, and for the jokes about the parakeet.
Right, exactly. And I guess it gives you some sense that he's got a heart, that he's not made of stone.
True.
He wants to care for something.
I do wonder when he comes over to America for like days and days, who's taking care of that bird?
We don't
It doesn't matter. Yeah. He's got it covered, I'm sure.
So back to Soviet Red Square, and there's soldiers marching outside on the Kremlin, in front of the Kremlin. And then we cut to a bunch of police officers. They're taking up positions outside of a building. Right.
Do you have any thoughts on like what type of cops these are supposed to be?
Not a clue. I don't know how like law enforcement works in Soviet Russia, right?
So, I think later on they refer to themselves as the Moscow militia.
Yeah.
Which I think is not like militia the way we think of it here. I think it's a different word. I think it's just like the city police.
Yeah, probably.
But I felt like it should be something more like their FBI, like the National Police Force.
Well, I mean, given that this is all about drug related, I would imagine that it would be more on a national level.
Yeah, it seems strange they would send like a city cop.
Yeah, exactly.
On this assignment, but
anyway, we see the clean-cut blonde guy from the gym again. Hey, cool, he's back.
Yeah.
and they're both sitting in a police car together, like outside, waiting for this bust to occur.
This dude is the most expendable character that's ever existed in movies.
When we were doing research, neither one of us could remember if he even had a character name.
No, I mean, he probably did, but no, it's like, you don't need to bother learning this guy's name.
Do not waste your time.
He's not going to be here long enough.
Right. There's a bit of exposition about, they're talking about the drug problems in Russia, and it's getting out of control, and it's just going to be like America very soon.
What's weird is, so the subtitle said something about it's going to be like Miami.
Yeah.
But when the dialogue he's speaking, he clearly says Harlem. And it's like, oh, interesting. I think they were like, that might be racist. Let's
go Miami. But it's super interesting that they went in that direction. But Donko says, don't worry, that'll never happen.
I read where Arnold took 3 months like learning to speak passable Russian.
Right.
It's like, why? Because you don't speak much Russian in this movie at all.
At all. And he's terrible at it even still, right?
Yeah.
But I love it in the car. They're talking about his nicknames, how it used to be the Iron Hand, and now it's
something about, I can't remember what it is. It's something to do with the fact that we know after the fight in the snow, you're circumcised.
You're clearly circumcised.
Round head.
Round head. That's what it was.
First of all, I mean, that fight did not happen in front of a big crowd or anything. I'm like, how does this known?
And presumably, like one of those guys is probably dead after what Arnold did to him. And Sven's beard is permanently ruined.
It starts a running theme in this movie, though, of like bizarre dick and ball references.
Dick and ball joke. I mean, it never ends, like constantly. Yeah. This is just the beginning.
It really picks up in the back half of the movie. It gets crazy. But
it's really, I mean, you could do a drinking game about the number of dick and balls jokes they do in this movie. So they get out of the car and they start talking about their plan. And so Donko's going to go into the cafe and try to bring Victor out peacefully. Meanwhile, his nameless partner waits outside as backup in case there's trouble, which of course there's going to be trouble. We already know this.
I don't know what actual police procedures are in Soviet Russia, but it's fucked if they would actually send in one cop to arrest like an armed and dangerous murderer like in his lair, like while a dozen cops wait outside.
They just make him tougher in Soviet Russia, man. I
don't
know what to tell you. But so Donko enters a crowded cafe, and all these Russian folk songs are being sung, and there's like a saloon pianist playing piano, singing in Russian. I mean, it could have been a saloon in the Old West. I mean, it's crazy.
Oh yeah, it's a cool vibe.
Yeah. But anyway, so everyone, like the music kind of calms down, and everybody's staring at Donko as he passes.
Yeah, it was kind of weird. Like, I don't know if they were all meant to be like everyone in here is a criminal, or if it's just like everyone in the Soviet Union in 1987 or 88 or whatever was like, fucking done. We're done with the government by now.
That was the vibe that I got. Is just like, what are you government stooge? What are you doing in here?
Yeah,
right.
There's a random pig head.
Yeah. You've got to have a random pig head in Soviet
Keeping
Russia.
it on the bar.
Oh
like
my God.
With blood and shit. I mean, it was like, this is not up to code.
But yeah, I know. There's always a random pig head somewhere, and so they knock it out of the way really early in the movies, which I appreciated. But so he's scanning the room, trying to find who he's looking for, spots them at a crowded table in the back of the bar, and he walks up to them, flips his badge out, and tells them, "You're coming with me," basically, right? The leader, who we think, it's Victor, we think.
Yeah,
right? We haven't established
yet,
anybody.
yeah.
I guess it could be Victor, right? He insinuates that the cops are always picking us Georgians.
That's funny.
Right, which is hilarious.
That was Ed O'Ross, though.
Yeah.
Our Victor.
Yeah.
Giving great face. Like, he had an amazing voice as well. Whatever he was doing with the voice was just awesome.
No, his voice is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And so a couple other guys start protesting as well. And Victor pulls on his jacket and he gets up to walk out. But then a big mulleted guy who was just hilarious.
He had a look, man.
Oh, he had a look.
I thought he looked like he would have been like a roadie for Journey or something like that.
I know,
a rat. Like he looked like he was hanging around with metal like hair bands in the 80s.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, he was just his mullet was on point. Like there's no question about it. But he stands up and he demands that Danko produces any sort of evidence to justify this harassment. And in response, Danko punches the guy in the face, and picks him up, and then slams him down. Like it was a good stunt.
That dude was huge.
Yeah.
And he like picked him up over his head. It was like full wrestling
Full-on
move.
wrestling
No
moves.
talk at all. It was just like, I'm going to grab you. Great Arnold moves.
The guy is lying on the ground, completely stunned, and Danko walks over and rips his leg off, which turns out to be it's fake. It's a fake
that
leg.
was like a shocking moment though. Because like the hell?
Yeah. And he removes a plug from the hollow leg, and unbagged loose cocaine just pours out of this leg, and he shouts, "Cocainum!"
But that's the one iconic moment I feel like from this movie that you see on Arnold highlight reels is that cocainum.
Yeah.
But yeah, what the fuck kind of way to move cocaine is that?
I don't know.
No one like weird and musty and like
it's just like no one wants to snort that cocaine.
Had his stump.
Yeah, I can imagine like someone going like, okay, you have two options. You can snort this cocaine laced with fentanyl, or you can snort this cocaine that was in the guy's prosthetic leg.
Right, with his like,
I'll take the fentanyl.
I'll roll the dice.
So Victor shouts something in Russian, and a few of his goons like pull guns from all over the place, and they start shooting. Danko kills one of them immediately, pistol whips the guy with the one leg, knocks him out cold, and then he fires a few more shots before he flees the bar. I don't know what he thought was going to happen, but...
Danko?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, how do you just let one guy go in here alone?
Right, exactly.
Do this. That's insane.
It's just so stupid. But so one of the other goons, he bursts outside, shoots a police guy, and then he's shot in the leg, and then he like hobbles away in an opposite direction, right? So Victor comes out, shoots another cop before climbing up to the roof, and then he just starts running along the rooftops.
The police really fucked this one up.
They just, I don't know.
Yeah, we never thought he'd go on the roof. Like they had the place surrounded, and somehow he's still getting away like fairly easily.
Right, exactly. It's just like I don't understand who you're hiring to do this job, but clearly they're not getting paid enough. Well, it's Soviet Russia. They're not getting paid.
It could just be everyone's like someone's nephew, and they got the good police jobs.
Right. So Danko's partner that reveals that, hey, the guy I shot, that's Victor's brother.
Okay.
And it's like, okay, cool. Danko goes after the wounded brother while nameless partner goes after Victor.
Which seems backwards.
Which doesn't seem like the way we would go with it.
Our number one go after your number two, and our number two is going to go after your number one. Like I feel like we know how this is going to work out.
Yeah, the second Arnold goes after the wounded guy, he's like, oh, well, nameless partner's dead.
He's dead, man, yeah. We won't see him again.
Yeah, so... Victor's brother is very quickly cornered by the cops. He takes a shot at Danko, which was, I thought, an odd move.
Yeah.
Who then immediately kills him.
I read that dude was like was one of the biggest movie stars in Hungary at the time.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it was like for the Hungarian fans, I guess it's like this was like a huge thing.
Well, hey, props, man.
Yeah, right on.
No harm in doing that. So meanwhile, nameless partner has managed to get ahead of Victor, and it's unclear. The geography is very squishy.
Yeah.
And
the editing in this movie is choppy throughout.
It's so choppy. And so as Victor is rounding a corner, the partner turns around, catches him by surprise, and holds a gun on him and says, drop your gun.
He says, handcuffs would be a good idea. Like he's never arrested anybody before.
I know, exactly. Like he clearly is just like the son of a general.
Yeah, right.
So Victor drops his gun, but you're like, okay, this is not going to happen. He like has a spring-loaded pistol up his sleeve, which I think is just a Hollywood thing. Like,
yeah, does that happen ever in real life?
Right. I mean, I know I've seen those kind of contraptions in museums.
Yeah, right.
But they're not. I mean, given how often Hollywood uses the hidden gun trope.
Oh yeah.
You would think that everybody is doing it, and I think that just like some screenwriter saw it once in a museum, and now it's everywhere.
Well, like if movies are to be believed, though, then also like 1 out of every random 40-year-old man like used to be like an elite soldier or something. You know what I mean? Because everybody in every movie is like, don't you know? I used to be Jason Bourne. Whatever.
As someone who's over 40, I have a secret I have to reveal to you.
Yes, I used to be an elite killer. And if you kill my dog or whatever, I'm gonna like ruin your life.
I'm literally one dog murder away from destroying everybody. Anyway, so the sleeve gun pops out. He kills Nameless partner. Thank God he's gone. And then he just steps over the body and runs away, and he's gone out of the movie for the minute.
I liked how he was just sort of, it was pretty cold, like cold-blooded, like stepped over his corpse and ran off.
Again, Victor's he's the anchor of this movie. I mean,
absolutely.
Like, he's the best
good
part
bad
of this
guy.
movie. Yeah, great bad guy. So we cut to a police funeral, and Danko's fallen partner, who they've written his name and his birth and death year on the lid of the coffin.
Which seems like a strange thing if it's going in the dirt.
Right, exactly. And we want to make a note here because this is going to come back later. The death date on the coffin is 1988. So just keep that in your back pocket, everybody.
Right, yes.
We're going to come back to that later. But it's very, very weird. The whole scene is very weird.
The 88 makes sense because the movie came out in 88. So, okay,
exactly.
They were thinking. They were thinking, even though they might have shot it in 87 or something. Yeah, it makes sense.
It makes sense for this moment. For now. So Danko watches from a distance, completely stone-faced.
Why from a distance?
I have no idea.
Presumably, like, these were, like, close buddies.
Right. He wasn't a secret partner. I mean, like, it wasn't an illicit affair that he was watching the death of his secret lover from a distance.
Yeah.
You know, it was just very weird.
I reckon maybe he feels somehow responsible.
Okay, I could see that.
Like, this is my fault, but he didn't fuck anything up unless, I guess, except that he didn't just kill Victor in the cafe or whatever.
So I guess it's a personal shame of his. I don't know.
Yeah, perhaps.
Anyway, it's a little bit
maybe
weird.
Maybe he used to fuck the widow. Maybe he was fucking the widow currently.
Like maybe he came from fucking her. And like,
it was
and
he's
late.
like, well, it's gonna be weird if I'm like there.
I show up late from fucking the widow. I guess I should just
let me keep my distance. It's gonna make it weird.
Yes, the widow. But I guess the widow and her child got there on time though.
Oh, you got to have the orphan child there, like
always.
beside the grave, throwing like flowers or whatever.
So another uniformed cop.
Why was the casket? It was just open casket,
open
outdoors in the snow or whatever, and like. Is that how they were fucking doing it over there?
They do it a little bit different in Russia. What can I say, man? They just do it a little bit different. So another cop shows up and tells Victor that, or tells Danko that Victor has fled the country with some accomplices who he names.
Yes.
Which is so weird because we've not seen these characters. We have no context for them.
They definitely don't need to have names.
They don't need to have names.
Yeah, it's just goon number one and goon number two.
Right.
Yeah.
They are as important to this movie as Danko's partner was.
Yes.
Right. But they get names, though.
They have fewer lines than Danko's partner had.
Right. Yeah. But they get a first and a last name,
Absolutely.
which is just crazy. Anyway, Danko vows to track him down and make him pay for his crimes.
Hell yeah.
And so we've hit the inciting incident.
That's the hook.
That's the hook. We're in it.
We haven't even seen the United States yet.
No, not even at the States yet.
Pretty wild.
No. Yeah. We're like 15 minutes into this movie and we're still in Soviet Russia.
Yeah. Well, I'm here for it.
Yeah, I'm ready for it. It's a start. It's
gonna be a fish out of water story.
Yeah, exactly. It's a true romance for the ages.
Yeah, but we'll be back next week with a lot more of our Arnold Goes to America story. They could have called it Coming to America.
Coming to America. It could have been.
It came out the same year, I think.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But yeah, thanks for listening. And as always, we'll be back.
We'll be back.